Now we've created the user form and a summary, and the final step will be to create a main sheet that's going to have buttons where you can click to either start the user form or come and look at this inventory. So I'm clicking out of the pivot table. I can see all the sheet tabs. I do have one blank sheet. If you don't have one, just click the button to add one. So for this sheet, I'm going to select it, and I'm going to change the name of this sheet to Parts Data Entry. So I'll double click, type Parts Data Entry, and press Enter. On this sheet, I'm going to put two buttons. So I'll start with the first one. I'll go to Insert, Shapes, and I'd like a rounded rectangle. So I'll click that and just click on the sheet to create a default rectangle. It's selected, so if I start typing, it's going to go in as the caption for this shape. So I'll type click here to add part information. Now I want a button that will open the parts inventory. So I'm going back up to Insert, Shapes, Rounded Rectangle, and I'll click here to add another button. And while it is selected, I'm going to type click here to view parts inventory. So now I have the two buttons. They don't look very good yet though. The text doesn't fit and they don't really look like buttons. They just look like rounded rectangles. So I'm going to click on the first shape to select it. There's a Drawing Tools tab, and for Format, I'm going to click this More button and select one of the shapes. These bottom ones look like buttons, so I'll make this a blue button and click on this one, click More, I'll make it a green button. Then I'd like to resize them, so I'm going to select both of them. So this one's already selected. I'll press the Control key and click on the other button. Now they're both selected. If I drag one of the corner handles, I can make this button a little shorter and wider. I'll just see if everything fits, and it does. I'll go to the Home tab, and I'll center the text horizontally and vertically, and I'll make it bold so it stands out a little more. You can also change them one at a time. So if I click on the worksheet, then I could click on this button and make its font automatic so it stands out a little better against that light green. Now we have our two buttons, but right now they're just shapes. If I click on them, nothing happens. To add code to this Add Part button, I'm going to right click on it and click Assign Macro. That opens up this Assign Macro window, and it got the name of the shape. You can see it up here as well. And it's going to make something happen on this click. So I'll click New, and here's the sub and end sub. And it just picked up the name of that rectangle. So we're going to add the code, and it's just one line. We're just going to refer to this user form name and then tell it to show that user form. So here, I'm going to type FRM part loc, and then I'll put a dot, a period, and that gives me a list of things I can do with that. And I want the show. So I can scroll down, or I could type the word show. So here's the show. Just double click on that. Now it's going to show that user form, and that's all the code we need there. So I'm going to save, and then go back to Excel. And now if I click away from that button, so the pointer is changing to a hand over this button now, so I know it's going to do something. Whereas over here, if I point, it's just a cursor. So I'll point here and click. It opens up our user form, and we'd be able to add a part, and that would enter it in the database. I'm just going to click Close. And next we'll add code to this button. So right click on it, Assign Macro, and it's rectangle 2. We'll click New, and it creates a procedure for us with sub and end sub, and we're going to put a little bit of code in here. You'll find this code in the user guide in the Add Code to the Inventory button section. Just copy those lines of code, Control C, and go back to Excel, and paste them here in the Visual Basic Editor. And for the Parts Inventory worksheet, it's going to activate that sheet and then refresh the pivot table. So I'll save, and go back to Excel, and click away from that button. Now if I just click on the parts inventory sheet, I'd be able to see that pivot table, but it wouldn't automatically refresh. So this button is going to do 2 steps for us. So if I click here now, it takes me to that sheet, and if I had added new records, they would also be included in the pivot table. Then I'll go back to the parts data entry. And the last thing we'll do is hide the sheets that people don't need to see. So I'm going to go to the parts data sheet. This is where the data is stored. We really don't want people to poke around on this sheet and perhaps change things. So we'll just hide it, and it will prevent any accidental damage to that sheet. Right-click on the sheet and hide. And the same thing for the lookup list. We don't want people to change those unnecessarily. So I'll right-click and hide. And later, if you wanted to unhide them, you would just use the unhide command. So we have our 2 sheets now, parts inventory and parts data, and I'm going to just drag this one so it's to the left. It's the first worksheet now in this workbook. There's also the parts inventory. And now you're ready to add parts to your database using the user form, and then see what the current inventory is with your pivot table.